Okay, so let's discuss the topic today. We've been doing this the last 2 days, right? This is the day we're gonna actually we need to talk about the time card. I've kind of warned you that the book is gonna give you a very nice, clean time card. The times will be very easy. You'll be able to count with your fingers what the actual time card is, what the numbers are. You shouldn't need to use a scientific calculator, but if you are, that's fine. You have these little hours, minutes, seconds, or degrees, minutes, seconds key that will help you. If you have one like mine, you can even go in the menu. I don't think you'll need to. I think you should be able to count with fingers. So I'll give you a couple examples of what I'm talking about today. So again, on your time card, there's usually a date. What they're gonna do, and this is the funny thing, those, instead of the date, they're actually gonna have the problem number here. So this will be like problem number 1 will be right here, and then the time card goes across. I thought that was pretty clever the way they set that up. So so your first date is problem number 1, right? And then this is the morning AM, so this is when you check in. Then you have the AM punch out, then you have the PM punch in, and you have the PM punch out, or they'll call it afternoon, or whatever it is for the time. And so you have in and out, right? And we have to just figure out the time. Now they give you really easy numbers, so I'll give you an example of this. They say, okay, you're punching in at 7:30, you're gonna punch out at 12:30, you're gonna punch in at 1, and you're gonna punch out at 4. Like, super clean numbers when they give to you on the chart, so you won't have to do any weird conversions. I do want to do one example, so I'll do another one of these. I'll make it a little more challenging. I think it's important you get to see how to do a challenging problem, something that's weird numbers. So yeah, so we're already figuring out what the numbers are. So just counting. Okay, from 7 to 8:30, that's 1 hour. 8:30 to 9:30, 9:30 to 10:30, 10:30 to 11:30, 11:30 to 12:30. That's 5 hours right there. Okay. So that is 5 hours. So if I was writing down my homework, I'd have problem number 1 written down, and I'd already go, okay, morning. So I'd go AM is 5 hours. PM in the afternoon, 1 to 4. So 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 3 hours. So that's 3 hours in the afternoon. 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. Yeah, so 3 hours. And then the idea is you add these up, and so it's 8 hours total. Make sense?
Yeah.
That's your time card. That's literally what your problems are doing in the beginning. I think it's pretty straightforward. Is there any question with how I came up with that? Okay, now they're going to be easy numbers. I want to give you a challenge though. I'm going to just throw a problem on the board here to kind of see what we can do, to talk about what happens when you have really ugly numbers. So, let's say my example number 2 here. Example number 2, let's say we punch in at 8:37, so we were late to work. We punched out for lunch at 11:12. We punched back in at noon, and then we're gonna punch out at, let's say, 3:25 in the afternoon. So just kind of some goofy numbers. It's not clean. You have to actually kind of figure out what the numbers are. I thought this is more realistic in a real world situation, especially if you're going to like a business where they have a card that you actually have to slide, and they actually keep track of to the millisecond of when you checked in, punched in, that type of thing. I know during the summers when I was in college, I used to work at a manufacturing plant in Clear Lake. It was Larson Manufacturing, it was like Pella, storm doors, windows. I used to do that during the summers. They were down to the millisecond. You had to punch in, and then you had to keep track on your own, because sometimes they make mistakes. It's why would you even keep it down to the millisecond? You're gonna make mistakes every now and then, but we had to keep track, and so you had to punch in at exactly a certain time, and you had to keep track when you could punch out. It was kind of a nightmare. It's not a very clean system, but I understood why they do it.
Not very organized.
No, just the way they did it was kind of sloppy, but doing the math here. So I'm just going to do the morning. I just want to talk about this. This is where the calculator can come in really handy. It would be really nice. You have really clean numbers. You have 11 hours, 12 minutes. You use those little buttons in your calculator. Then you always subtract. I always do the time I punch out and subtract the time I punched in. Okay, that's what I always do. The later time minus the earlier time. If you're in the afternoon, I change it to military time if I'm doing it by hand. because especially if you're in the afternoon, you have to subtract this number first, you have to take that number and subtract the time you punched out earlier. You might have punched out at 11 a.m., okay? So, and you're coming back at 3, you're punching out at 3 in the afternoon. So the idea is that you might have to go to military time, so it actually gives you the correct number. This is not like you work like 18 hours. You're working, a few hours in the afternoon, so you have to be careful of this. So I'm going to actually change that to military time. I'm going to do all this by hand just so you can see this. So 11, 12, right? 11, 12, and then I'm just going to subtract the 8:37. I think this is important that you get to see this, just to see how to do it by hand again. Column method, old school math. Right? So on this one, I have to borrow, right? I don't have enough minutes on the 11 to actually subtract straight down. The top numbers have to be bigger than the bottom numbers. And you always start on the right side and work your way to the left. Well, I can't go 2 minus 7. I don't want to have a negative number there. So I'm going to borrow from the 11 o'clock. I'm going to make this 10 o'clock. And when you do that, you have to add 60 minutes to the actual minutes here, because you borrowed from an hour. So I'm going to make this 60. So this number has now become, I'm going to add 60 to it, it has now become 72 minutes. And now I can start to see how to borrow. I can borrow from the 7, make that a 6, and this is now a 12. Because if you borrow from minutes, it's still 10. It wasn't like an hour where it carried. So 12 minus 7, that's 5. 6 minus 3, that's 3. So right now there was 35 minutes that I've worked so far. Because again, I made that a 72, then I borrowed from the 7, making it a 12, right? 10 minus 8, 2. So it's 2 hours and 35 minutes, which makes sense, right? 8 to 9:37, 9:37 to 10:37, and then I can't go to 11:37, so it was like 2 hours and a little bit extra, which makes sense. It's 35 minutes. So that's the time I worked in the morning. Does that make sense how I borrowed from the minutes and the hours to do it? If you borrow from an hour, you have to carry 60. And if you borrow from a minute, you can just carry the 10 over. Top number has to be bigger. That's like old school, like elementary days of subtracting, but with minutes. Again, if you're doing it with this calculator, this is how I type it: 11 degrees, 12 minutes, and then I'd be subtracting the 8 degrees, 37 minutes. It's like hours and minutes. That's how it's always done. We don't even have seconds. You need to enter the seconds in here. And then it would spit out 235 out of the calculator. So if that's the way you're entering it on a calculator, it's nice that they have those features. Okay, questions with the morning now? Okay, I'm going to do the afternoon now. This one should be a lot easier. I think I should be able to count this by hand, but I'm going to do it with my old school math here. So subtracting this out, what do we have? The afternoon is 3:25. So I'm gonna change it up here in a minute. This is the punch out time has to go on the top, and I punched in at noon. Okay, now I can't do that, so I'm gonna change it to military time. To military time in the afternoon, you just add 12. So this is actually gonna become 15:25. That's just the easiest way to do it when you want to subtract times in the afternoon. Just change it to military, it makes it a lot easier. Top minus bottom, that's a 5, that's a 2. 15 minus 12 is 3, so I work 3 hours and 25 minutes in the afternoon. So total, I'm working, what? 50, I'm working almost a perfect 6 hours, almost, perfect 6 hours. Because 235 and 325. If I add these together, that's a 10, carry a 1, that's 60, that's a 5, and this makes a perfect hour. So I'm actually working perfectly 6 hours. I just wrote it differently so it looked weird. All right, does that make sense what I'm doing there? Mm-hmm. Again, most people can figure out that, the 3 hours and 25 minutes. Noon to 1. 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and then an extra 25 minutes. So 3:25. So it makes sense for the afternoon. All right. Questions at all about time card? You're going to have 7 time card problems. The good news is for your time card is that it's super easy and clean. So like you should be able to just count your fingers the whole time. There shouldn't be any goofy numbers. Okay, let's do the last type of problem.
Isn't it all the same pretty much?
Getting all these notes written. What was that?
Aren't these all the same pretty much?
Yeah, these are, yeah, so this is overtime, yeah. So overtime, so these are the same problems we did yesterday. I'd just like to review them one more time. But yeah, so let's go to the next one. So the next problem we're gonna do, this will be overtime. And when they give you the overtime problems, it'll be in like a little story problem. They'll kind of tell it to you. You're not looking at a chart or anything like that. So I'm not gonna write.
Whether we're doing time and a half or
yep. So they'll tell you all the clues. So the idea is that, so they'll say this week, and it'll be a big story problem. So this week you're working 50 hours, and 10 of those hours are on Saturday.
So that'll be time and a half.
Yep, they're working on Saturday. Your pay, the pay rate that you have is $9.25 per hour. That's your pay rate that you get, $9.25 per hour. And it wants to know what is your pay for the end of the week. So the idea is you worked a total of 50 hours. 10 of those hours were on Saturday. So that means, if you think about it, you worked a full 40-hour week and 10 were on Saturday. 10 hours were on Saturday. So just like you were saying, Graf, this Saturday time, this is time and a half. This is overtime. And then this is your normal work week. And that's just normal pay. So you have to kind of pay attention to that. They're not saying that you're working 60 hours, you're 50 hours total. 10 of those were on Saturday. Now, how do you know you make, overtime? It's anything over 40 hours. Or you worked a Sunday holiday. Those would be double time pays. And anything past 40 hours would be time and a half. So just be kind of cautious of that. So we are working the full 40 hours, so at normal rate, $9.25 for this one. And then this 10 hours on Saturday, you get time and a half because you were past 40 hours. So you have to be careful. Sometimes, if you think about like a real world situation, sometimes you won't get 40 hours a week. So even working a Saturday wouldn't give you overtime pay. You just have to work at normal rates. So that's something you have to think about when you're in the real world. Just like you guys, I worked during the school year. I had a job, I worked at a little movie store in Clear Lake. And then I worked 32 hours a week. And I also, was in 4 sports. It was a lot sometimes. I did that from freshman year all the way through high school. So let's talk about the actual rates here. So since we're not working a Sunday or a holiday, we're not getting double time pay. This is time and a half. That means this pay won't be $9.25, it'll be half of $9.25 added to it. So we'll come back to this. So this rate is gonna be at $9.25 normal. That's your normal rate per hour. And this rate over here, this is time and a half. Time and a half. So that's the $9.25 plus whatever half of $9.25 is. Here's the shortcut. If you want to calculate $9.25 and time and a half, here's the shortcut you do. You take $9.25 and you multiply by 1.5. What that will do for you on a calculator, it'll automatically tell you time and a half pay. It's perfectly 100% of your pay and an extra half of your pay. That's what 1.5 does. So 925 times 1.5, the pay you're getting is $13.80, and I'm just gonna round, $13.88 per hour. That's 1.5. So that's your overtime pay since you're working on a Saturday, not a Sunday. If it was Sunday, it'd be what, $18.50? It'd be double time, double pay. But we're just doing time and a half pay. Does that make sense? The shortcut for doing time and a half for 1.5. Now I'm not done yet, right? All I've been doing is writing notes to myself, writing down what normal hours were, what my pay was, my normal hours for overtime, and what the pay is. At $13.88. Now what I actually have to do on the calculation is figure out what my total pay is going to be. So this is going to take the extra time. this is gonna take the extra work here. This will be my last problem of the day. Now you can get to work, you can work on your stuff. So let's calculate the normal time. So 40, this is my normal pay, my normal week, 40 hours, and we're gonna multiply it by 925. So when we multiply this will give me what my pay is. So 925 times 40, we're at $370, even. Okay, questions on that first part? Okay, now we have to do time and a half. So we worked what, 10 hours at overtime? Overtime, we're working 10 hours at $13.88 an hour. So if we multiply that, that should be $138.80. I don't need a calculator for that calculation, I can do that in my head. And now total, I have to add the two together. So my total pay for this week is adding the overtime and the normal. Again, this is all from the story problem that they kind of read off, so you have to kind of break it down, break it into pieces. So if you have to separate, time and a half, double time, and normal pay, make sure you're making your columns, making sure it's very organized in your homework so you know exactly what you're getting paid. So 370 plus the 138.80. So if I added these two together, my total pay, my total wages that I'm earning this week is $508.80. Not bad. Not bad for a week to pay. You had to put in 50 hours to do it. So
That ain't the worst. But it ain't the best way.
okay. Questions at all about the work here that we're doing? Okay, I already have your homework written on the board. It's actually over there already. I put it on the board earlier today. It's page 4, page 11. It will be due this Thursday. So it'll be due Thursday, the September 3rd. So page 4 and page 11. So page 4, if you're doing it, you're going 1 through 8. And then page 11, you're going 1 through 7. So I try to stick with about 15 problems. That's what I try to stick with. So there you go. It's due on Thursday. So make sure that you are, you're taking your time to do it. You have plenty of time today. You have 20 minutes. You can work on it here right now. I'll give you some time tomorrow. And then it's due Thursday, September 3rd.
Get everything moved in. I see you found your glasses.
Yeah, found my glasses. I searched for them last night. Emptied out a few boxes last night. We finally got the last of our stuff moved in. The only thing I haven't moved yet is like the stuff that was in the garage, like the lawnmower. I'll take that over later. It's not important.
Yeah.
And do that
If your ass ain't long, you don't need it.
It is long. I haven't looked in a while. Been too hot.